If you want drama, let's have drama with this. Take a look at this story from the Free Press. I thought I was saving trans kids. Now I'm blowing the whistle. There are more than 100 pediatric gender clinics across the U.S. I worked at one. What's happening to children is morally and medically appalling. I mean, that's the gist of her story. It's a woman who worked for 4 years at a clinic as a case manager, responsible for patient intake and oversight. I left the clinic in November last year because I could no longer participate in what was happening there. By the time I departed, I was certain that the way the American medical system is treating these patients is the opposite of the promise to do no harm. Instead, we are permanently harming the vulnerable patients in our care. I'm segueing here, but I want to mention, this is the kind of story that makes me be like, guys, you know what, man, I will eat humble pie. I will do whatever. I need your help on this one. I don't want to fight with people about drama stuff. We shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. I'll say whatever I have to say to calm everybody out, to chill everybody out. And that's on me. I'll take that, because this is the kind of stuff that makes me feel like, look, I've been talking on this channel for a long time about just getting the van down by the river and just letting it all go away. And the problem with that is every time I imagine how much more fun, in a sense, my life would be if I just said, I'm done working 16-hour days, I'm done running a company, I'm going to go hang out by the river and just catch some fish and just breathe the fresh air. And then I think about 5 years after that, people will be locked up in camps, kids will be getting castrated, money will be worthless. And I'm like, yeah, if we stop doing what we're doing, or if we turn on each other, this is the kind of stuff that doesn't get exposed. I believe this woman who's coming out here is coming out now and saying, hey, what they're doing to kids is wrong, is likely doing it not completely because of the work that we do or people like the Quartering or whatever, but partially as a grain of sand making that heap. The more we promote individuals calling this out, the more people will wake up to what the cult is.
Yeah.
And if we do nothing, and if we fight with each other,
yeah.
And I'll take responsibility on that. If I keep doing that, if I keep getting pissed off and telling people to go screw themselves, I'm going to wake up one day in a world where this is the norm, 100%. Yeah.
I just spent the past week in LA working with, doing ATR stuff. And I know a lot of the very left-leaning people and spending time in Los Angeles and Hollywood and stuff. Those are the kind of people that you run into. And even people that you would consider left-leaning, they have kids and they hear about this kind of stuff and they're just like, yo, no, this is where I draw the line. And they don't want to talk about it in public. They don't want to admit it because it's, it's a dangerous thing to condemn this kind of stuff, because there's all kinds of associations that people on the left make if you condemn these kind of gender surgeries, gender reassignment surgeries. But parents are over it. Parents don't want. It doesn't matter if they're left or right. Parents are strongly of the opinion that this stuff is bad. And without people like this show, like the people that we have on here, pushing back on this stuff, people don't come out and say, hey, this stuff is bad. They don't have the intestinal fortitude or whatever to stand up and say, hey, no, I really have this problem with these procedures and stuff. So it is important work.
Matt Walsh went down to Loudoun County, and he spoke about critical race theory and gender ideology in these schools. Mm-hmm. It is this kind of work where, look, man, I don't agree with Matt Walsh on a lot of things. All right, he's a bold guy, to put it mildly, but I think, in a future where there's factions of Matt Walsh's, the disagreements we have is sitting at a table and him being like, look, Tim, I just don't agree with you on how we're going to be implementing a policy like that. And then me saying things like, well, look, I don't know, but, I'll see you at the ballot box. Whereas today, it's people bringing kids in for castration. You know what I mean?
I wonder about you guys, Jose and Reed, like, I think of you guys as the pinnacle of libertarianism, and I wonder do you deal with this kind of stuff?
Disavow.
When you live hands off,
I disavow that.
I don't know if you would call libertarian hands off, but when you live like you live your life, I'll live mine. What do you do when a parent across the road wants to cut their kid's genitals off and turn them into another gender?
Yeah, so I'm all about cultural repulsion. Basically, yep. I think that's the strongest way to go. Like in New Hampshire, We're really trying to create a culture of obnoxious liberty, as Phil can attest to. Not just the Twitter account, but just in general.
The
Like,
anarchist abominable snowmen up in New Hampshire.
The only
But
reason this has taken off is because the cultural sensibility is allowing it to go on and handling these people with kid gloves. If
Yeah.
we push back and said, "Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous that you want to, mess with the endocrine system of a young child at a point where their endocrine system's already in flux and mutilate their genitals, and in a point where they're not really in any sort of stage to give any sort of meaningful consent in their life," I don't think it's that crazy to be like, "Hey, yeah, you're nuts." Like, to be essentially a bully, to push back culturally the opposite way. I mean, I'm not saying do violence to these people or anything like that, but there's no reason you need to accept that as a narrative, as that's okay.
there are people constantly saying that they're so glad that they left New Hampshire because it's a bunch of libertarian idiots or whatever, and we're all like, "Good, we're glad you left." And they have protests where they're calling free staters vermin, invasive species that need to be exterminated. That's what they're saying about us.
Is it because you guys troll people?
Yeah, because we're so obnoxious and
By the
we're
way, to
openly
be clear,
happy
I'm not
about it.
saying to do that to adults who have made this choice on their own. I mean, I have my
Yeah,
personal
same.
opinions. It's probably a little bit ridiculous if you start like, but like snip, snip. But, so far, it's your life at that point. Do what you want. I don't care.
Dave
You know?
Smith made a great point when he said that stigma is how you peacefully discourage behavior that you don't like.
Yep.
And so the idea that libertarianism equals libertine
Yes.
government.
We bully them a lot,
yeah.
the libertines.
What's that?
Well, so just because something is legal doesn't mean that you have to endorse it. And that's one of the things that people that have it, you call them state, or we call them status or whatever, but like that's what a status tends to think. If you say, I don't think this should be illegal, they automatically in their brain jump to the conclusion that you endorse the behavior. And so I don't think that it should be illegal for people to get to get gender reassignment surgery. That's fine. You live your life, go ahead. That's totally fine. But there's nothing wrong with stigmatizing people that want to have children or young adults get gender reassignment surgery and condemning the idea of teenagers or children getting gender reassignment surgery. That's something that society should do.
There are challenges to any kind of like the idea of cosmetic surgery is a gradient. It's not yes or no. It's not black or white. So if we could ask a few questions to explore the morality of transgender surgeries and plastic surgery in general. Is it okay for an 18-year-old human being to have their hand surgically removed?
18, I say. I mean, because of the fact that you have to have an arbitrary line, I guess 18. But I mean, you're not fully developed at 18.
Yes.
But,
Well, I mean, a legal adult.
yeah,
You think it's okay? Would you guys?
I mean, I don't want
It's
to.
an age of consent conversation.
No, he did not say those three words.
It should be legal, but it should be condemned. Like, people shouldn't support the idea. People shouldn't encourage it. And doctors shouldn't say, let's go ahead and cut your hand off. Like, it should. I don't think that we should have.
What do you guys think?
I agree.
Should it be legal
no,
for
I agree
adults
with
to
them.
have their hand surgically removed?
I
Sure.
think the ethical thing for a doctor is to not do it and I think, stigma comes in play. If they do it, they get shunned upon by the doctor's community, other people in the community, et cetera, et cetera.
This is where the Ron Paul argument about heroin comes in. He told a bunch of Republicans in, 2012, in South Carolina, like, if heroin was legal today, how many of you would go shoot up right now? And the whole crowd was like, yeah, none of us would. So, I mean, no one's going to, like, cut off their hand, I mean...
They will. Yeah, it's called
Okay,
body.
some might.
A general body dysmorphic disorder, something to that effect, where people they feel like I talked about this with the Twitter 1.0 executives when they were talking about how they got to protect trans people because they're having an identity crisis that results in depression and potentially suicide. I said the same is true for general body dysmorphia. Anorexic, for instance, people are starving themselves to death, or people who overeat and become morbidly obese and have heart attacks, but also people who want to have their limbs removed, and they do. There are many stories of there's one guy who had like a tree fall on his arm so that he could justify amputation because he wanted it removed from his body.
So he cut it down on top of his arm?
Something like that happened. Yeah, he had it fall on his arm so that he could justify removing it, or something to that effect. Or I think he smashed it with a hammer and then claimed something like that happened and he needed to get it removed. There are people who are experiencing this, and there are questions about what is the best way to provide assistance to them. If there is no, and this is where I suppose I'm more liberal and less libertarian. If the law exists, you could shun a guy all day and night, but if he's getting paid the money for it, he doesn't care what you think.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I've been a blue collar worker for the last 10 years of my life, and every time some anomaly takes place, OSHA thinks they have to regulate it away from ever happening again. Instead of accepting people are stupid, and they're going to make mistakes, and dumb stuff is going to happen. And having a very, reasonable set of guidelines, they make it so now you have to wear a harness when you're 4 feet in the air.
I also want to touch.
So I'm just saying that, like,
I get it.
justifying a law because of red herrings just leads you to a place of stupidity.
But I
basically.
don't think it's a red herring, because those are things that actually happen. Like, they're actually, the question about removing the hand is a question of, can you pay a doctor to remove a healthy body part? And the answer right now is, for the most part, yes. Mm-hmm. That's not how you actually help a person who's suffering from some body dysmorphia. So what happens is, hey man, if the money's good, but if someone is, I'll put it this way, because this doesn't include death. What we often talk about is the Golden Gate Bridge, and every person who's jumped off it and survived has explained that they immediately regretted it, and the one thing going through their mind was all of life's problems could be solved except for having jumped off the bridge. And so if they jump off and they end up regretting it and they live, we learn that. If someone says, I need my hand removed, and then they regret it, what do we do? It's you're never getting it back. And you had that one doctor who said, that woman who said, of children who get mastectomies, if they ever want breasts when they're older, they can just get implants. It's like, that's not the same thing. You've lost them.
This is where stigma comes in. Good example. I have a business. I breed hairless cats. I know it sounds silly, but we deal with clients. We sell them, and this is where stigma comes in. Yes, you could have the concept of, hey, the money's good, that's it. But we even have turned down business many times because we're like, I don't like this client. I don't like the idea that this person is going to have my pet, and they're going to be a representation of my brand. And vice versa, like, we also have to upkeep a certain standard, have a clean cat room, a nice presenting house, because we want to have a good looking brand, because we don't want to be looked at as like crap. So, like, the idea that, and I'm not trying to like crap on you or anything, but I'm just saying, like, the idea that's just like, oh, as long as the money's good, there's a whole lot more that goes into that. And yes, on an individual level, there still will be, like, there's definitely people that go and sell hairless cats for like $500, which is like criminally low for them, and it's just gross. Like, and those are going to exist, but in the long run, that is not a good way to upkeep what you're doing, because it doesn't work. Like, but there will be individual situations. Just what system works best.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.